Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Necro Thursday. You're listening to the Necromaniacs horror podcast. How's it going, Jeff?
Going pretty good. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Just looking for a house,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. It's like anytime you're doing that kind of deal, it's always a little stressful. So yeah, I'm kind of engaged in that right now.
Yeah, it's such a process.
But it's going well. Got some time to deal with it, but moving along.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. Have you had any time to check anything out since we last talked?
Yeah, a little bit. I saw one thing that I think you would really enjoy,
Mm.
and I would like to maybe do an episode on it at some point. And of
Oh,
course, it's the movie Stop Motion, which is currently on Shutter right now.
yeah, you mentioned that. And I wrote it down to watch it because I had the house to myself this weekend, and I don't really plan on doing shit, So I'll be definitely checking that out. And what's that all about anyway?
Well, it was recommended by two of the inner circle. Brandon Legion told me about it, and of course, our
Mm.
quality control manager, Rennie, mentioned it to me and put it in terms that made it very interesting. He said that it's a very sort of Ligotti-esque storyline,
Mm.
and certainly it was. I mean, I was like that definitely. Brandon's recommendations are always good, and
Yeah.
when they're backed up by Rennie telling me that it's like a weird tale, I'm like, oh shit, this is definitely got to
Yeah.
check out. So yeah, I checked that out. Really enjoyed it. Um, Pretty much hits all those notes. There's one moment in there which you'll appreciate, and I won't tell you about it, where there's like
Okay.
a couple lines of dialogue that I'm like, oh yeah, this whoever wrote this script knows what's up.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
and I
Love it.
mean, we've been on like we started our House of the Dragon rewatch because next week the new season of House of the Dragon kicks off. So Tina and I we started it. We haven't really gotten too deep into the rewatch yet.
And that's the prequel to Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah, it's like 200 years prior to the storyline in Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay, yeah. Also
Yeah.
doing a prequel today, so hey, then that
Yeah, no, it's
makes
in line.
sense. Yeah.
And then in line with the movie we're doing today, I checked out the 1976 Omen, and we started watching Omen 2, but didn't make it, last night. So
I did the same thing. I watched the Omen, the Omen 2 and the Omen 3 yesterday.
damn, dude.
Uh, yeah. Thankfully the Omen 3 was mercifully short. Neither of the sequels were good. I saw that there was actually an Omen 4 and
Really?
a re yeah, which I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm tapping out.
The
Uh
remake, I didn't even know that
yeah.
existed.
Yep, yeah, I saw it back when it came out. Was it 2006 or 7 or something like that, maybe 2008. It's yeah, it's beat for beat the same movie if I remember it correctly. I don't remember anything different about it. Like it was the exact same movie.
I haven't seen it, so maybe for as a completist, maybe I should check it out at some point. But
Out of sheer morbid curiosity, maybe, but like
yeah,
the original, I mean, we're gonna talk about it, but the original's fucking fantastic. Yeah,
yeah.
such a great movie. Um, I watched a prequel myself the other day. I watched Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me.
Oh
I
yeah,
just got it on Criterion Blu-ray,
I love
and
it.
wow, man, yeah, I love that movie too. I remember the reception it got at the time was quite cold. People did not like that movie, did not take them back to the world of Twin Peaks. It was something very different.
People are funny like that when it comes to David Lynch's work. Some people didn't like season three, Twin
Yeah.
Peaks.
Yeah, no.
Naturally there's always detractors. There's always, like these kind of hipster naysayers of all this stuff. And so I'm not surprised. But I mean I'm a mark for David Lynch, so I like all of his stuff, you know what I mean? Except for maybe Dune. But I can
Yeah.
even find like something in Dune that I enjoy.
Yeah, I mean it's very weird and it's fun to watch on that level. But yeah, Firewalk with Me has aged really well. I think people have taken a different look at it all these years later, and are finding their appreciation for it. The Blu-ray is great. It has 90 minutes of deleted scenes.
Oh
Shows a
wow.
lot more of the Twin Peaks characters that people
Oh
miss. Uh, would have been a very different, well, it would have been a very long movie with all that stuff in it. But it would have given people, I think, a little bit more of that Twin Peaksy feel that they were missing from Firewalk with Me. But I love it. I love that world. I don't know how much David Lynch has left in him, or I mean, a lot of the cast of Twin Peaks is has died, departed. But man, I would like to see him return to that world again in some capacity.
yeah, I mean, Kyle MacLachlan's still around, and
Yes, he is.
I mean, it would be cool to see what happened to Cooper at the end of season 3.
And Laura, is her
Laura
name? No,
Palmer,
Cheryl Lee. Yeah,
Cheryl
Laura
Lee,
Palmer.
yeah.
Yeah, kind of another like kind of vague ending with season 3 that is very much open to interpretation.
Speaking of Criterion, another thing I watched actually was the Manhunter Criterion.
Oh wow, the Hannibal Lecter movie, right?
Yeah, great film, man. I actually had an
Yeah,
opportunity to see that at Brooklyn Arts Center in downtown there, BAM. What's it, Brooklyn Arts, whatever, BAM.
something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the guy who plays Will Graham, William Peterson, is still my favorite Will Graham, and all hands down.
yeah, he's great. There was a remake of Manhunter with that made it sort of officially part of the Silence of the Lambs world, where Anthony Hopkins was playing Hannibal Lecter again instead of the great Tom Noonan. Tom,
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
is. Yeah.
Tom Noonan
Um,
rules.
yeah, yeah. Manhunter, I think that might be my favorite of all the Hannibal Lecter movies.
It's mine actually, and with a close second being the TV series.
Right, which I still have not seen.
The guy who plays Will Graham in the TV series and William Peterson are awesome. And they both have this like sullen, nervous, like obsessed, like air about them, where Ed Norton was never able to capture that feeling.
Yeah, that was also directed by someone who was very, you're like, what? Brett Ratner, I think, directed that. I remember reading that and thinking, like, whoa, really? Him doing a Silence of the Lambs film or a remake of Manhunter. Interesting choice.
Yeah.
And the movie was kind of like flat and dull, just kind of lifeless. I don't know. It felt like by the numbers. And with Ed Norton, you think he'd probably take control and guide it somewhere better, but he didn't. I didn't like that movie at all.
Nah, I mean Ray Fiennes is great in it, but the rest of the film kind of blew, I thought.
Yeah, good actors. I mean, Philip
Yeah.
Seymour Hoffman's in it. Yeah, it's a
Yep.
good cast. Yeah, really, really good cast. But yeah, just not all there. Should have just left it alone. Left it at make people seek out and watch Manhunter.
William
Uh,
Peterson in that film looks like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
he's fucking great. I love him in the Live and Die in L.A. He's.
Another great one, man. I think Michael Mann did both of those, right?
Um, no, I think William Freakin did William
William.
to live in. I think he did Live and Die in L.A.
Okay, that's another
I
great
could
one.
be way off. You might be right. I don't know. I haven't seen that in forever, but I remember really liking it.
So what else, man?
That's that's it. Well, okay. I mentioned the Omen. We're going to talk about that more. I watched Shin Godzilla. We've been watching a lot of Godzilla movies around the house the last 3 weeks or so. We both really liked Godzilla minus one. It was fun to watch the OG Godzilla. So we watched Shin Godzilla, and won a lot of awards in Japan. I don't know. It was cool. The version I watched had really shitty English subtitles. Like that was almost made it comical. That was that was kind of enjoyable. But it's kind of cool. It's more about like focuses really more on like the what would happen if Godzilla attacked, like what scientists and government would do. It really kind of focuses on that stuff. There's not a lot of character stuff. There's not a lot of monster stuff. it's an interesting take. Um, and of course, if you're a Godzilla fan, you've probably already seen it. But if not, I recommend it.
I still gotta see the Godzilla minus one. Did that streaming anywhere now,
It
even
is
for rental?
it's yes, it is streaming in the US now. I believe you can watch it on Amazon. It's very good.
Maybe I'll check that out later today.
Yeah, you guys should.
Yeah.
It's fucking great.
Couple of previews actually of stuff. For any of you guys who listened to Everything Went Black yesterday, you'll know that Chris Bozzone was on as a guest from Cadabra. One of the inner circle guys over at Cadabra Records and Chiroptera Press. And a couple of really exciting things coming out on Chiroptera. And I know one of them you'll be excited about, Jeff. There's a
Mhm.
Ted Klein Dark Gods deluxe edition coming out with like illustrations and sick like artwork and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, because like the only version of that I have is like this kind of really, kind of cheapo paperback that I have.
Yeah.
And they're republishing the entire Lovecraft in the original Lovecraft versions of the stories, the edits of the original as they appeared in Weird Tales versions
Oh,
of all of H.P. Lovecraft's stories and poems, novellas, everything in a several volume deluxe set, hardcover. Um, oh, damn, they had like it's not ST Joshi. ST Joshi, I think, is doing the Ted Klein Dark Gods volume, but I forgot
okay.
who's doing the annotations for the Lovecraft stuff.
Oh,
But
okay.
that's all forthcoming, man. The Ted Klein thing, I think, is later this summer, and the Lovecraftian stuff is coming out in the fall. Like volume one is dropping sometime in the next few months.
Probably be expensive, but worth it.
Yeah, dude, it's an investment, man. Like, it's like I they do great work. It's a little bit pricey, but if you're down for that sort of like deluxe editions of things, the cool thing at Chiroptera though is like you can get like three different grades of book. If you wanted to get just like a paperback version of it, it's
Right.
reasonably priced. But then of course there's like the numbered signed ones, like the deluxe hardcovers, and so it's like there's different price points for everybody, which I think is cool.
Right. And you get what you pay for. You don't
Yeah.
want to go and get a tattoo for like $100 and end up with something terrible. If you pay top dollar for it, you're going to get something good. And some things are, like I just said, some things are absolutely worth it. I mean, and this stuff I think is totally worth it.
Yeah, and I've been pretty diligent about collecting all the Legati stuff that they have coming out, which is like really cool because a lot of that like Teatro Grotesco is coming out. They're doing a version of that. And
Yeah.
it's hardcover deluxe. Like all I have is like a paperback of it.
Yeah, me too. I just this has been my little thing lately. I listen to his stories on YouTube when I'm in bed at night,
That's a
and
sounds like an awful idea.
it's great. I have the strangest dreams. Teatro Grotesco. I just listened to that story, and man, that's one of my favorites by him. Such an
Yeah.
incredible story. I always tell people start with that one, and if you can hang, you'll be a fan. If not,
That that's
maybe
probably
Legati's
got
not for you.
that's probably got his like strongest, more rereadable material. Like I find myself going back to that book a lot. I mean, it has my favorite story, The Darkness, the Shadow in it. You know what I mean? And
Shadow of the Darkness.
Shadow of the
Yeah, that's
Darkness. Yeah.
the first thing I ever read by him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Teatro Grotesco is good. That's another great story.
yeah. Bungalow House. Is that in
Bungalow
is
House.
Gas Station Carnivals? Those are like my favorites. Those four right there. Those
Yeah.
are my favorite stories by him.
The
Yeah,
Red
pure.
Tower is good too. And I think that's in Teatro too.
Mm,
Yeah.
he's the best, and anything with his name on it, you need to get.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's what's been going on, man. And like I said, it's kind of this it was an interview I did on Everything Went Black, but it's definitely a crossover to Necromaniacs here because it's horror related stuff. And any of you guys out there, definitely check out Cadabra Records because if you're into that angle, for sure, man, it's the way to go.
100%.
Yeah. So let me run down all of our brothers out there in the Necro world. Of course, we have the four horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse, kicking things off on Mondays. Every other Monday, we've got Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666. Up next in the rotation is on Tuesday is Into the Necrosphere, brought to you by Jackie Smith on a weekly basis. The only metal podcast I listen to. I listen to it every week, and it's the only one I listen to.
Hmm.
Wednesdays, of course, is Everything Went Black, which you can get all kinds of different stuff on there. Music, um, authors, filmmakers, you name it. Talk about a lot of stuff on there. Thursdays, of course, is Necro Thursday, and also day one of the Saul Knox podcast. So
Mhm.
yeah, we both come out on the same day. Friday brings us Spitball Media by Mike Scandato's brother, John Draper, not Scandato, John Draper.
Yep.
Saturday is a day off. Sunday, Carl returns with another episode of Soul Knox, and Carl and I are deep into our Darkness Weaves project, our collaboration, where we delve into the work of Carl Edward Wagner, a hopefully not too obscure these days weird fiction and dark fantasy writer that everyone who likes horror and dark fantasy should check him out. And then out there in the margins, on an as needed, you know if you know when an episode comes out of Iblis Manifestations, brought to you by the one and only Cheyenne of the great band Trivax. And then we got you covered, man. It's a war against mediocrity, brought to you every week, a full week with one day off. There you go.
Perfect.
Yeah. Before we get into the episode, let's do the necrophone. We got a couple of
Yeah.
callers this week. If you want to reach us, you can get us at 908-913-0782. Once again, 908-913-0782. And first up, we've got Brendan from Philly.
Hey, what's up, Necromaniacs? This is Brendan in Philly. Just listening to the new episode on the Civil War right now, and I just wanted to give a quick plug since you were talking about Italian horror, and especially your favorite scores. I would recommend you check out the new Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats, which is their new album's called Nel Ora Blue, or The Blue Hour, and it's a, quote, cinematic audio experience, and it's a tribute to Goblin, Italian horror, 70s giallo, 60s psychedelia, and I think a lot of you might really enjoy it. So check that out, and waiting for Civil War to be a little cheaper to rent, but I might check out Last Stop in Yuma County tonight, which is a little more in my price range. So, but thanks for everything you do, and keep up the good work. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for calling in, Brendan. Appreciate it. Glad that you're enjoying the stuff that we're putting out there. And yeah, right on about Uncle Acid. I know
Mm.
Mike is a huge fan of theirs, and that this new project, this new record sounds really cool. And John Charn, who used to play in 1349, he was their U.S. touring drummer. I believe is a drummer in Uncle Acid currently. So that's another reason to for me to like them.
1349. I remember them.
Yeah, they're still around. They have a new record coming out.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, that's how much I keep up with things. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So up next we got returning caller and friend of the show, Tavis from Pittsburgh.
Hmm.
Hey, gentlemen, it's Taves from Pittsburgh. Calling in. Listen to the Weekender on the way in. So I want to call and wish Mike a happy birthday. Hope you have a good one, man. Also wanted to, like I said, shows have been good. Wanted to follow up on the one gentleman who called in. Talk about Giallos. There's one from 1976. Feels a little bit overlooked called House with Laughing Windows. It's pretty cool. It's about this artist who comes to this like remote village to restore this painting and just creepy townspeople and stuff. Definitely worth seeking out. Kind of hard to come by, but I know that the gentleman at Sinister Cinema, he has it on one of his drive-in double features, actually paired with a Paul Naschy film that People Will in the Dark. it's a pretty cool double feature. Definitely worth picking up. It's always nice to order from that guy. And I was checking out some back episodes. I was just wondering if you've ever discussed the films of British filmmaker Pete Walker. Mostly known for, I think, Frightmare is probably his most recognizable film. But recently watched House of Whipcord again from 1974 as well. And that is just a bleak, I mean, downer of a film, just very grim. Worth seeking out. So like I say, he did some other stuff, but I think Frightmare and definitely House of Whipcord are the two that are worth good jumping off starting points for him. But enjoying the shows, and hope everybody has a good weekend. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks for getting back at us, Tavis. And thank you for wishing me happy birthday. I appreciate it. And yeah, man, it's always good to hear from you. And yeah, dude, I mean, I've seen Frightmare, right? But I'm not that familiar with Pete Walker's other work. And I certainly haven't seen House of the Whipcord.
I haven't either.
Yeah, it sounds, if it's bleak, it sounds like something I'd be into.
Yeah. These recommendations are fantastic, man. The very long list of things I need to get to.
Yeah. But once again, Tavis and I met in person when we were out on tour a couple months ago out in Pittsburgh, outside of Pittsburgh. So it was really cool to hang out, and that's one of the things I love the most about this thing is going out into the world and meeting you guys. So that's cool.
Totally agree. I've yet to run into anyone here in Austin. But they're out there.
They are, man. There's definitely some people in Texas that are listeners for sure.
Yeah. I don't get out much, so it's my fault.
Yeah. That brings us to this week's feature, which is The First Omen. Directed by Arkasha Stevenson. And you might recognize that name from episodes of Legion and Channel Zero, which I know you're a fan of.
Yes, well, the first season I liked quite a bit. The other three, not as much. I liked the stories they were based on, but wasn't crazy about the other seasons. They were okay. The first season of that is fucking great.
Yeah, I mean, I dug all of them, but like first season is definitely the strongest in my opinion.
Yeah.
Screenplay by Tim Smith, Stevenson, and Keith Thomas, and then based on a story by Ben Jacoby. Now, when I read that it was based on a story by Ben Jacoby, I assumed that there would be, some novella or something that Ben Jacoby wrote that this story was based on. But under further scrutiny, I realized that was not the case. So he had a concept, and then they wrote a screenplay around it. So that's really all that is.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And of course, based on the David Seltzer characters from the 1976 classic, The Omen.
Yeah, this one really ties into The Omen more than I realized after watching The Omen from 76 again.
Well, last night, I saw this in the theater. Tina and I went to go see this at the Showbox out in Secaucus, and great experience. But then rewatched this into the 1976 film, and I too also saw so much. Well, we'll get into like one of the big points of contention that people have, but aside from that, it's a pretty direct connection between these two films.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It was I liked watching it before watching the original Omen, because it felt more like a standalone thing. Like, the Father Brennan character didn't realize that was the guy from the first movie, which seems pretty fucking obvious in hindsight. I don't know how I didn't catch that. Like little things like it just felt like its own thing more to me. Like I wasn't 100% sure where it was going. I was pretty sure where it was going, but
Quickly about the score by Mark Corvin. The score, I think, is incredible in this film, and I just ordered the vinyl like minutes before we started this recording.
Oh, great! Didn't the original movie, the score won an Oscar? I believe. Yeah, I didn't know that.
The original score was like award winning, so it's cool that this has like a equally sick score. The release date for this is April 5th, 2024, and the movie is 119 minutes long.
A bit long.
That's kind of the way things go these days. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
90 minutes is nothing now.
yeah. Very true.
Pretty extensive cast. We've got
Wow.
Nell Tiger Free as Margaret, and you might remember her from Game of Thrones. She played Marcella Baratheon.
Okay.
Very young, she's a young lady, so she was like very young during Game of Thrones.
And British, I didn't know. We didn't
Yeah,
tell.
yeah,
Mhm.
British. Nicole Sarachi as Carlita, Maria Caballero as Lutz, Ralph Innocent as Father Brendan, Ishtar Curie Wilson as Sister Angelica.
Great name.
Yeah, Ishtar Curie Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taufik Barhorn as Father Gabriel, Sonia Braga as Sister Sylvia, the Abbess, Bill Nighy as Father Lawrence, and Charles Dance as Father Harris, and also another Game of Thrones alumnus. You'll know him as Tywin Lannister.
Yeah. Small
Yeah.
part, but
Actually, if you have to do an independent search, I think he's not credited in his role. It's
okay.
interesting,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah, I can see that.
yeah.
Mike, I remember when you talked about going to see this movie, and I remember thinking, why the hell would you go see this? And you told me it was actually pretty good. And I had no expectations watching this, and I think that's a very good way to go into this movie with no expectations, because right off the bat, I'll say very, very pleasantly surprised by this. Usually these like legacy sequels, prequels, whatever, they end up not being very good. Just a way to like, oh, people recognize this name, let's make some money off of it. But there's a lot of care that went into this, making this a great movie, or a good one at least.
Well, well, well
Surprised
that
the hell out of me.
that's why I was so interested to find out about this story. Like it was based on a
Mm,
story by some dude, that guy Jacoby, whatever his name is.
right.
And
Yeah.
it's like, but I was disappointed, man. I thought like, oh, who's this guy? Did he write like a novella, like or something? Because it feels like a completely, I mean, and this is not a dig at it, but it feels like a fully realized universe, fully realized story that that maybe was modified to connect to the Omen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like a huge stretch to connect it to the Omen. You know what I mean? Like sometimes
Right.
you see these like prequels and it's like kind of really changes everything of what you thought you knew. This one really settled in really well. Like it was really incredibly well fleshed out
Yeah.
and yeah, man, this yeah, pleasantly
So the
surprised.
interesting thing about this too is that the movie Immaculate, which I also have seen, I've seen both of these films,
Mm,
uh, which almost is an identical plot, actually. It's
yeah.
very much the same movie almost, but it came out like a week before this, which kind of was like they kind of like blew up the spot of this film by coming out in March as opposed to April. You know what I mean?
It's so funny that that always happens in Hollywood. Like every couple of years, there'll be two movies coming out with basically the same plot. Like there was the two movies back in like the '90s that were about the end of the world apocalypse through a natural disaster. You know, this happens, and through my little research, the film Immaculate kept coming up, and people pointing out that it was almost the exact same movie.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we were going to see Immaculate the week it started, the dropped or
Yeah.
whatever, and we did not go to see it in the theater, and then but we saw the Omen first, and then we
Mm.
watched the Immaculate when it was streaming, and I'm watching it, I'm like, yo, this is like the same movie basically, not nearly as good though. I mean, and the Immaculate actually is okay. I thought it was an okay film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. It had almost like more of like an exploitative like vibe to it, where this movie has like a completely different feel to it. But I dug it. I thought Immaculate was okay.
Okay.
The ending was like a little over the top, which is cool, but so it makes it different. But yeah, anyway, back to the Omen.
This did not have an exploitation vibe to it, but it
No,
very much had like you mentioned this, like it felt like a European horror film.
Dude, that's what I was saying, man. It felt like an Argento film almost or something like that. And that's what I really loved about it. I mean, it took place in Rome, and a lot of the film is in Italian and but it just like I said, it just had that Argento like vibe, like the way it looked. Um, Even though the Corvin score is incredible, but I can imagine like a Fabio Frizzi score accompanying this film. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah, totally. I can, especially during the riot scene, playing some weird prog rock song.
Yeah, totally. Or like a Pino Donaggio or something like one of those guys like scoring this film like would have been great. But I mean, Corbin did a great job, and I love the score.
I
Very
thought the
was
score,
very
yeah,
atmospheric.
fantastic. I loved like not only the European vibe of this, but it had like a real 70s horror movie vibe. Like,
Yeah,
like a lot of those like sweeping shots of the cities that would like zoom in on things, or like, kind of there's a shot of our main character sitting down on some steps, and then the camera's very far away up in the air. It had like a very cool like 70s vibe to it. Like I said, a lot of care went into this. The filmmakers really fucking knew what they were doing.
yeah. It's like it felt like they didn't show up just to collect a check and exploit like an intellectual property with this film. It's like
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
there was a lot, like I said, the Italian influence, like the 70s, like devil movie influence was there too, a little bit, the 70s horror vibe to it. And then just a very unique take on it, a very unique flair to this film.
Absolutely. And there's a few moments where it felt like studio notes kind of
Maybe,
thing.
yeah.
Like there's a few sort of like generic-y, like, mid 2000s kind of things happening here and there. And I thought it had a very unnecessary prologue and epilogue. But other than that, like once you get into like the meat of the story, it's really good. It has a very slow pace to it too.
Yeah, and I love that. And then there's
Yeah.
one iconic scene in here, which is an obvious homage to another iconic scene in a
Oh yeah.
film that you and I both love, and we'll talk about it when we get to this.
Yeah.
And it's also a nod to people that love real horror films, not just like your, generic film goer.
Yeah, 100%. I right when I saw it, I knew exactly. I was like, okay, I know what this is. I know what they're referencing.
Yeah, so a lot going for this movie, just right off the bat. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it starts off with a prologue. We got Father Brennan and Father Harris, the Tywin Lannister.
Yeah.
um, giving this sort of preview prologue about this occult conspiracy and the showing photographs of this babies with the name Skiana inscribed and Harris is killed and I almost forgot about this until I rewatched both of these movies in order by a falling spike like this pipe
Yeah.
and it splits his head open and that's like a foreshadowing of how Brennan meets his demise in the 1976 film.
Yes. Yes, it is. One of my few minor. This scene could have been cut from the movie. It felt like an afterthought. It felt from a totally different movie. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't have the same feel as the rest of the movie. I think you don't need that stuff. I think the plot of the movie is very well explained throughout the rest of the movie. So this just felt like, oh, we need a little more of a homage to the Omen, you know, and it set up like a bad tone. Like watching that scene, I was like, God, I don't know, I'm not too into this. So I would have done, that scene doesn't need to be there.
But then the actual film starts. It
Yeah.
opens in Rome. It's the early 70s. There's all these it's amidst the years of lead in Italy, which is like a period of time of social unrest. And there was clashes between the far left and the far right, very politically, um, sort of active period in Italy's history. And I have a couple of little conceptual things that play into that too. Um,
Hmm.
because I know, Italy has always struggled with fascism, as we know from
Yeah.
World War II. And
Right.
also we know from what the hell's her name? Giorgia Meloni, like the new right wing installment of in Italy.
Yes.
They've always loved strong men and authoritarianism in Italy. So there's a little connection here in the plot that I want to get to at some point.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, just a little flavor to that. So yeah, amidst this backdrop, Margaret Dano arrives, and she goes to the Vizzardelli orphanage, and she's a novitiate, which is like a woman who is about to enter the nunhood or the order of the nuns or whatever the hell it's called,
Right.
and
Yeah.
she's
As
American. Yeah,
yes, and her roommate is also basically the same. Her roommate Luz is basically going through the same thing. Now, was she Italian?
Luz.
Because yeah, because at one point they're at a bar and she goes, "Can we speak English? Italian's hard for me when I'm drinking." And I was like, "Oh, I
Well,
thought she
I
was
know the
Italian."
name Luz is an Eastern European name.
Ah, okay,
Yeah,
all
but
right.
also, but she looks Italian as fuck, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, she sounds Italian as hell too.
Yeah, like she looks mad Italian, like Lutz.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't know.
totally.
That's confusing to me too.
Yeah, that was like another little like point I had wrote down. Like, where's she from?
Yeah. But she plays her role in this whole thing, man. And it's almost Shakespearean moment in the movie when at towards the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. See, there's so much in this film that I just love. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, totally. Like you mentioned, like politics do play like a big part in this movie, but it's a lot more subtle than movies that you've seen come out the last few years. It doesn't quite like doesn't really beat you over the head with it, but this movie definitely has something to say. It feels like.
yeah. That's the thing. I'm always a big fan of subtlety. I don't like to have things like, pushed in my face all the time.
Yeah, you didn't leave the theater thinking, "Oh God, men are evil, the patriarchy, that kind of stuff." But I think a lot of that stuff is in there. Like, I think you can like put this in a modern context. Even though it's 1971 about the nuns and things like that. But it does seem to have some things to say about rape culture, things like that. I think that it's definitely there.
Yeah, so around in the beginning we meet Cardinal Lawrence, who is this creepy pederasty sort of like looking guy, this he's like, oh, I've been and he kind of hints like in retrospect, and the second or third time you watch this movie, he talks about very highly of Margaret and about her progress and how he's, been tracking her all these years and all this sort of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost gives its hand away too soon.
Yeah. So right away this guy's probably going to play a big part in this whole drama. Um,
Right. Yeah.
and then also the young Father Gabriel is introduced to us, who's like pretty straight up guy, like
Yeah.
one of the good guys. It seems like
Yeah.
the abbess, Sister Sylvia, who is like the quintessential like evil nun. I mean, I never went to Catholic school, but like you imagine this being the one who like beats the kids with rulers and stuff like that.
Yeah. 100%.
And then there's the weirdo nun Angelica, who with the shaved eyebrows
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
troubled, like she grew up in the nunnery, I guess, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Like she was some, urchin that they've took in and has grown her entire life, lived her entire life in the nunnery. And it seems very shall we say eccentric.
That's a good way to put it. um, Again, I didn't feel like that character was totally necessary, and the way she meets her end again felt like a big homage to the original Omen. But
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. We actually both said that last night when we were rewatching this. Like, I'm not sure what Angelica's role was, except to burn herself, immolate herself, and throw herself and hang herself from that structure.
Yeah, and basically like, hey, remember this from The Omen? Well, we're doing it
Yeah.
in this movie too. Yeah, that was yeah, that I didn't like that. That scene also really reminded me of Midsummer a lot. I don't know if
Mhm.
you felt the same way. Like it felt very influenced by Midsummer.
Yeah, definitely. You know,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So, Luz and Margaret seem to hit it off. Both young ladies about to enter the nunnery, which is like a fucking insane, like to me. But it's like,
Yeah, these two, yeah.
yeah, these two women. Well, not so much Gabe, Margaret, but Angelica. I'm like, but that plays into this thing, though. You know what I mean? You're like, why the hell is Angelica likes to party? She's like, not Angelica. I'm sorry, Luz. I
Lux,
misspoke
yeah.
there. Yeah, Luz is like party girl. She likes to go out to discos. She's got her wig.
Yeah. And then yeah, it brings us to that disco scene. And I wrote down, I was like, scene is going on forever. Like, like why is this so long?
But that's
And
intentional, though. I
yes,
feel.
yeah, it becomes very, very important to the story. And it starts to dawn on you throughout the movie, like, oh, I kind of know what's going on here. But while it's happening, like the scene is going on really long. Um, but like you said, there's a point to that.
Yeah, so that's also where she meets this guy Paolo, this Italian dude. Um,
Paolo.
yeah, Paolo, with this like
Yeah.
at the disco and they're dancing together and they're, getting very very he's getting very, very close with her, handsy. So
Yeah, they're talking about Barbara Streisand and stuff. And
yeah, talk about Barbara Streisand, who, it's 70s, man. Barbara Streisand was like like one of the elite there during that period.
yeah, I love that shot too of Luz like upside down. Like what's going on? And then it kind of like zooms out and you see she's dancing with her partner. Just visually that I really like that. That was really cool.
Yeah. A lot of mustaches, like broad collars, that sort of thing going on at the disco.
Yeah, and that's another thing. This movie looks great. Like it looks expensive. Like this takes place in 1971 in Italy, and you feel like it really is. There's old cars all over the place. The detail in the clothes and everything. They did a really great job with all that stuff.
I would love to have Paolo played by a cameo of Vincent Gallo or something like that.
DH him or something. Yeah.
Well, no, no, he's like probably like 65 now, but still have him picking up this like 22-year-old girl.
Yeah, you just fucking put a camera on Vincent Gallo in his regular life. That's probably what he does.
That's what I was thinking.
Fuck yeah. Love it.
So at this point, Margaret, she blacks out. She wakes up in the morning feeling terrible, and she has no memory of what happened the previous evening.
Yeah, right. And Luz tells her, like, I stopped you before you did anything too crazy. And the movie kind of continues on. You're like, oh, okay. Um, but as the film goes on, you kind of get a sense, no, that was very important to the plot of this. And you start to realize maybe Luz isn't all she's cracked up to be.
And this is around the time that we were introduced to Carlita, who is an orphan that's been living there. And also we see that there's a lot of like childbirth going on in this orphanage.
Yes.
Like there's some hallucinogenic like childbirth scenes that are very powerful in this part of the film.
Unexpected too. Yeah, they really went there.
Yeah, it was like very uncomfortable. It's like,
Yeah, I
oh, so
wasn't
that's where
sure.
that's where babies come from, huh? Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't really sure if the movie was PG-13 or R until that moment of the birthing scene where you see a woman giving birth and they don't shy away from the details and see this demonic hand coming from this woman. It was very cool and very unexpected.
Yeah, no, very, very cool.
Almost
Um,
Takashi Miike like like
yeah, it
scene.
was it was like a Japanese thing too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah, definitely, man. We got Italy, we got Japan, we got like 70s American films. It's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Even like, when she's lying there hung over, her hair is sort of strung out behind her. It kind of reminded me of like the early 2000s where the the long haired, long black haired, scary girl. It kind of had that vibe to it
Yeah, definitely. I could see that.
from Japan. That was like the big thing with Japanese horror and American films influenced by Japanese horror.
So now, like, I just, I don't want to go beat for beat through this film, even though it's really tempting to do that. But so, and we're also going to spoil this because we all know what happens, really, to be honest. Like, we all
Yeah,
seen the Omen, so we know that, kind of know the end of this movie anyhow.
yeah, you kind of
So
know where it's going. Yeah,
yeah, but it's not about suspense, really. You know what I mean? This
yeah,
film.
no, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Um, so, but the one twist that is not apparent, that is not really indicated at all in the 76 version is what's going on. Why are they trying to bring the Antichrist into introduce him to the world? And Brennan explains that there's two churches and there's another conspiracy going on with this other church. And this is interesting to me because he explains that there's the regular church, where God-fearing people go and worship you know, and there's another darker reflection of the church, which wants to hold on to power, right? In the face of the rise of secularism in the world,
Mm.
and he points out the radicals, these like leftists that don't believe in God and are moving away from the church, and their conspiracy in this other church is to bring about the Antichrist and create fear and drive all these people back to the church so they can keep power over everyone. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So now this is where I got, a little philosophical here. Now, this like sort of mirrors the idea of the authoritarian playbook of creating an other so that they have somebody to rail against and remain in power. Like Mussolini, all the you know authoritarian figures, Victor Orban, like all these people, Donald J. Trump, all these types create others so that they can be the answer for all of these fears that they have. And I think this might have been intentional because they chose the early 70s. Well, not only because the film chronology, but they underlined the backdrop of the years of lead in Italy, which is this social period of social unrest and left to right, extremism and that sort of thing. So the second church is like this more authoritarian um, element to the Catholic religion, where they're literally conjuring up an other, the Antichrist, so that they can remain in power. And I found that to be very interesting because that was never really touched on in the 76 film.
No, but this doesn't really step on that film either.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
which is great, which I really liked. I totally agree with what you just said. I mean, they creating something to fear to control people. I felt like it was exactly what you said. It's very relevant today. We see it all the time, everywhere. These people are out to destroy the country. This person is not destroyed. You know what? It felt very relevant and very intentionally political to today's times.
Yeah, but also in like a cool, like, fantasy horror way. Like it didn't just beat you up with it.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. Exactly. Really cool, really well done. I really liked that explanation. Again, it didn't step on, it doesn't really spell out what, you know, in the first Omen that's what, is happening. So it was cool. It added to the backstory. Like this came from within the church.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I did the same thing. I watched the 76 film right after this, and it's like you kind of catch the story like midstream. Brennan shows up and like, with the
yeah.
Thorns family, it's like, and then some dark Catholic guy shows up with no real backstory as to who he is, and he produces this child for the Thorns, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And who's this guy? Where'd he come from? What's his deal? That sort of
Right.
thing.
I also love like that with Father Brennan. And when you watch the '76 movie, he's fucking over the top, and that carries over into this film. The way the actor portrays him in this film, like he's very like manic and like always like, no, please stay, and like grabbing at her and like like it was a good continuity. Like I think he played it similar to the way the characters played in the '76 film.
So also Father Brennan has been like a defrocked like priest too. He's been excommunicated, for his
Yeah.
knowledge of this other arm of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Doing a bad job of trying to stop it too, I gotta say.
Yeah, he's fucking it up, man. Definitely, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. They made 5 more movies, so
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so now some of the actual what happened to her during that blackout period starts to like, surface. Like she spots Paolo like out in the wild, and he's like doesn't want to engage with her, and he sort of is avoiding her. And this is like one of the most overtly horror scenes in the film happens, where he gets hit by the car, like before he actually really, she can't really catch up to him. He's trying to like get away from her. And during that scene, I don't recall him actually saying, "Look for the mark" to her.
Oh yeah, no, I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he definitely did. It's very quick. It's easy to miss.
Okay. So he gets impaled by a truck, and then it's like this is so brutal, this scene, man. So like she goes up to him and he's like, I'm in trouble or whatever. He says something like weird,
Yeah.
like, and then he ends up being cut in half and passes away and dies, basically.
Yeah, it's so good. You can tell it's an actor's holding a dummy too. It's not like CGI. It looked
Yeah.
fucking great. Like it was pretty horrific. Yeah, I agree. It was definitely one of the most outright horror, like gore elements of the movie.
Yeah. So around this time is when we discover like there's like this chamber underground, and there's all these files labeled Skiana. And
Mm.
that's where we see all these photos of like basically the failed attempts of creating someone to bear a child for Satan.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the whole
Of
thing.
course they keep files
Yeah,
because
there's
it's a horror
files, of course.
movie.
Yeah, yeah, there's a file. It's not something you'd ever want to really like, bury that somewhere. But
Yeah.
yeah. So like this is an interesting point too, is in order for the Antichrist to be born, the Satan has to impregnate one of its own offspring,
Right.
which it's an interesting twist, I think.
Yeah, it is. And like that's where I think the audience gets pretty way ahead of what's happening, and that the Carla character, the girl, is a little bit of misdirection.
Yeah.
That Margaret is really indeed the intended target the whole time. Which I think you get a way ahead on that. Like, yeah, I think at least I did. I started to see like, oh, this is really all about her. This is like a Wicker Man kind of situation where she's being manipulated to be at the appointed place at the appointed time.
Well, going into the movie, I assumed she was going to be, you know what I mean? Like before I even
Yeah.
saw the film, I was like, oh, okay, she's going to be like, the father of the Antichrist, or the mother of the Antichrist.
Right. Yeah. Well, actually, because I was expecting a very generic horror movie and like, oh, scary little girl and all this stuff. Like, I didn't see it right away. So but it was about like, or somewhere early in the film, I realized like, oh, this girl's just a big bit of misdirection.
Yeah. So this is when she remembers exactly what happened to her during her blackout period.
Great scene.
Great scene, excellent scene. Uh, yeah, so that's basically what happened is she's impregnated by the devil, this like satanic creature that looks like all right, now this is where everyone gets their panties in a bunch, okay?
Okay.
In the original movie, the 1976 film, right? Damien is born of a jackal.
Yes.
Okay. So you remember you watched the first one again and you saw that when they exhumed the body, it was a skeleton of a jackal, you know?
Right.
So yeah, that's where everyone's all hung up on this. So, you know, or not everyone, but some people are hung up on this.
No, I didn't. I was unaware of that.
Yeah, you know, there's been these like hipster types out there who are like, well, you know, really the mother of the you know, Damien is a jackal, and I don't, you know, the whole movie sucks now because, you know, they didn't. Part of me is like, man, this is like a way more interesting story, I think, than that.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I wasn't thinking about that at all, even watching the 76 version.
Yeah, I mean, where do you, you know, this is more interesting because it has this whole conspiracy element to it, and also
Totally.
it's more like realistic. It's more like, okay, it makes more sense logically that a woman would bear the Antichrist as opposed to a jackal, no?
Yeah, totally. But the jackal plays a part in it though.
The jackal does
Like,
play a part in it, yes.
yeah,
Because the form of Satan is this jackal-like creature
right.
who
Right.
impregnates her. And she, you know, it all comes back to her in this like vision. And then we have the scene of scenes
Yes,
where
we do.
yeah, it's like once she realizes that she's pregnant, she has a scene that is immediately I was like, oh wow, whoever directed or wrote this film is a huge fan of Possession, and
Mm,
there's it's almost like a very very close scene to the Isabella Gianni scene where she's like, you know, in that case she's I guess she's aborting the child, you know, but in the case
yes.
of Margaret, she's her pregnancy is manifesting itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, her
Yeah.
belly gets big and her, you know, all this stuff, man. It's crazy. It's awesome. Great scene.
It is. It's great, and like, I mean, it is almost the exact same scene. But I didn't hate it. I loved it. I mean, right away I was like, holy shit, they're doing the fucking quintessential scene from Possession. This is great. You know?
Yeah, and it's like and when we saw this in the theater, to me, I was like, this isn't for someone who is gonna watch like some bullshit like, you know, horror film. This is some, you know, that scene was made for people who like who are into the genre for their, you know, who are down. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
Possession is like a pretty obscure film. Like not a lot of people, I mean, it's more so now people have seen it, but for years that was a obscure movie.
Yeah. If you saw that, you fucking, yeah, you, yeah. But, you know, yeah, it's come to Shudder, and it's out there now, and more people, which I think is a great thing. More people
Yeah.
have finally seen that movie. So I think more people will get that reference, but I would say a majority, your average chucklehead, you know, going to an AMC to see this isn't going to get that.
Yeah, it's not for the Friday night crowd, you know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I fucking loved it. I thought it was great. I absolutely loved that scene.
So, you know, after that, she wakes up and she's strapped to her gurney in like some cave, you know.
Yeah,
And this you know, this is a very 70s scene, by the way, too. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
we got
yeah,
we have all these like, you know, um, they look like cult members with their hoods on. They're, you know, all people from the orphanage, you know. You know,
yeah.
Cardinal Lawrence is there. We see Luz, you know, her roommate was all part of this thing from the very beginning. So now we know that like she was like instrumental in getting Margaret impregnated by Satan.
Yes, yes, exactly. And she shows her true evil intentions. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like that. I liked her like confirmation scene too, or whatever you call it, when
Oh
she's
yeah.
becoming a nun. That was really, really good.
It
Like
goes to
she's being
show you just
indoctrinated into a cult.
yeah, it just goes to show you how like and you know, I grew up like in a Roman Catholic family, you know what I mean? And like my
Hmm.
grandmother was from Italy. And it's like I always saw the witch doctor element of the Catholic religion through my grandparents, you know, and my great grandmother, and like the
Yeah,
pagan elements. I didn't realize it at the time, but when I was a kid, I just thought like all this like ritual and like casting spells and, you know, icons and all this stuff was just part of religion until when I got older and I realized that, man, this is like a very, you know, very occult sort of element to the religion, and
Yeah.
this is a centerpiece of that. It shows this like ritualistic like indoctrination of these women into the order of being a nun.
Yeah, the movie did such a great job of making that really creepy too. Like it's about the Catholic Church, but you feel like you're watching something like Midsummer or The Wicker Man. Like these people are an insane cult, you
Yeah,
know?
no,
Yeah.
absolutely, definitely.
Uh, um, which leads me us to the end, which honestly, this kind of a prologue or epilogue, whatever you want to call it, again, didn't need to be there. I felt like it was just there to set up more stories in this prequel universe that run concurrent to the Omen and its sequels. Um, I didn't like that. I didn't think it was necessary. It felt like a studio note. I think it would should have ended in that cave with everything burning. Would have been a fucking great ending to this film.
I feel like that was a logical ending too, where it just bleakness, she burns, like, that's it. And then we pick up with the story from Omen,
Yeah,
76.
yeah. It felt like a studio note in this movie. Like it just didn't tonally really fit with the rest of the movie. It fit more with like the first 5 minutes, which also felt like studio notes to me. I could be wrong, but that's
Yeah.
just what it felt like. Like, hey, maybe this will be a hit and we can set up a universe and all this other nonsense. But I really hope this is like a standalone film. I think this did okay theatrically. I don't know if it'll get a sequel, but I mean, so much better than it had any right to be. I texted you right when I finished
Yep.
watching it. Like, holy shit, this was good. you know?
Yeah, definitely. I also had the same feelings about it because I want to initially I was like, oh, this is just gonna be like a night out, like we're gonna go to the diner, we're gonna go check out a movie out and this would be fun, But I was right away, I was like immediately just impressed by the atmosphere, the acting was top notch,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
very, very good acting in this.
very well acted, like pretty much right from the beginning, the score like drew me in, and I can't go on enough about how great I think the film score is for this movie.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
That said, what would be your final grade for this?
Oh, I easily give this a 4.5 out of 5.
Yep, that's where I landed too.
Yeah.
4.5. Few problems with it that bugged me, but your brain has a way of editing out the things you don't like when you watch something cool. Um, other than the attempts at world building or sequel, whatever. This was really a huge surprise. Really solid, well executed, really well thought out. I mean, the filmmakers, the director, she clearly loves the genre and
Yes.
really went in trying to make a great horror movie and not just a cash grab. And I think she absolutely nailed it.
Well, and also too, like I was saying, like this is her debut feature film. Well, I don't think I
Yeah,
mentioned that earlier, but this is her debut film.
yeah, strong debut, man. Really strong.
Oh yeah, and I was like interested because like I said, I was a fan of Channel Zero. I forgot what season she did, but she was involved in some of those. And Legion was like something I watched. It was okay. I enjoyed it, but I was like, all right, cool. This is a horror director, like the Channel Zero stuff was like, okay, well, she's into like kind of like weird, like the weird element of horror, which might be cool. But
Mm.
this really, really blew me away, and I was just like completely taken aback by how good it was.
Yeah, I'm very curious now. I'd like to go back and see the season of Channel Zero she worked on, and just rewatch it, see if there's any similar visual ideas or anything like that. I know she didn't work on the first season. That was one director whose name
Yeah.
I forget. Um, but yeah, now I'm interested in going back, and I've never seen any. I've never seen Legion. Heard of it, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, Legion's cool. It's a TV show. Definitely a huge step forward with this than stuff she did in Legion, Or I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know how she did the entire series or just certain episodes or whatever, but yeah.
yeah.
Also like slipping in some topics, that are popular these days, like misogyny and politics. So unexpectedly slipping that stuff in without being too heavy-handed.
Yeah, it could easily go over someone's head, I think, but it's absolutely there. I mean, it's definitely there. But
Yeah,
it doesn't beat you over the head or anything like that, or simplify it, or you can't make its political statement into a meme or anything like that. Like it's very smart. It's very well handled.
yeah, and I'm definitely gonna get this Blu-ray when it comes out. Or I don't know if it might even be out for now, for all I know.
I think it is. This is a top 5 for this year for me, which was very, very unexpected, man. I did not think I would be into this at all. When I heard about a prequel to The Omen, I fucking rolled my eyes. Like, and this was the biggest surprise of the year so far for me.
Right, because The Omen isn't even really, does never really rated high on my like, obviously the first film is a classic, but it's not like Halloween or something like that, you know what I mean? Where like I was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
all in, but so I was surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did because the Omen property itself wasn't something that I was really interested in. But yeah, great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
do you
same
think they're gonna
thing.
make more of these? Do you think they're gonna do another one?
It seems like they want to. I hope they don't, to tell you the truth. I mean, who knows? Maybe if she's directing again and guiding the story, maybe it could be, they could come up with another great story, because it definitely leaves that door open.
Yeah, totally. I don't know,
But
and I'm not really sure how I feel about it if they do another one, but this one was great.
yeah, completely agree. This was yeah. I think we'll be talking about this in our year-end wrap up again.
Right now, it figures very on the upper end of the top 5 or top 6 films of the year for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, in the top 3 at the moment, maybe even fucking top 2. This is
Yeah.
yeah, really, really, really like this movie.
Thanks a lot, everyone. And thanks, Jeff, for joining me on this episode. And
Of
we'll
course.
talk to everyone next week. Take care.
Take care.
Hellfire!